Hello, Valeria. Are you with me?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, quite well.
Lovely. Um, how are you?
I was thinking about what I'm gonna tell you before our session today, our podcast today. But I'm turning 30 tomorrow, and I'm having like a lot of thoughts and feelings about that in relation to Ukraine. And I don't know. I know you and I will have an episode later to finish off the season to talk about what we've learned and what we've discovered in our journey of hosting Ukrainian spaces. But I think it's just, I don't know, highlighting to me the post that Mariam Nayem did a few weeks ago about our generation and understanding our generation of people who were born in independent Ukraine, and just, how much has changed for us and how much we've seen. And it's just a bit, I don't know, mixed feelings and a lot of thoughts, but I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking about that.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
of course. And I think I'm sorry that I'm gonna tell everyone on your behalf, but as with any other Ukrainians, I think the best present this year is going to be more donations to our favorite charities on the ground, donations to Ukrainian spaces. Also, if you love us and you feel like, if you haven't supported us yet, so yeah, am I right? Is it going to be the best way
100%.
to celebrate your
And I
birthday?
actually, 1000%, anything. I also wouldn't use the word celebrate. It's like at this point in time, it's mark these dates for us because of just what's going on. But I would actually say that I know that this is sometimes considered a controversial cause and topic to talk about, but I think the biggest present for me would be donations to support the army in whatever way is possible. But yeah, I think I mentioned last time I spoke to one of my really close friends who's on the front lines, and he just called me and he said that, we just need really need support. And as we've been saying since day one and since our very first episode, is that if Ukraine cannot defend itself militarily, we will not be able to continue the way that we are
Yeah.
and talk about everything else. So if possible at all, if anyone feels like donating more, people always ask us, right? Like, what can we do?
Yeah.
What else can we do? So donate to causes that support the army.
Actually, I very much disagree with you on celebrating. I think that your birthday, you should be celebrated as any other Ukrainian life these days amid genocide. I think that celebrating Ukrainians and Ukrainian lives in many ways possible, this is the least we can do, and the biggest fuck you to genocide that we can actually deliver as well in our everyday lives as well, celebrating and
You're
supporting
right.
our army.
Can I
Okay.
just
I think,
quickly,
yeah.
sorry, I wanted to jump in quickly and share a fact that many people who probably have grown up in the West probably will not know. But I asked my mom to send me my birth certificate. I don't know why, I just had this thought. My birth certificate is still a Soviet Union birth certificate, even though I was born in independent Ukraine. And I'm sure loads of people as well have the same thing. But it just shows that, like, the legacy of stupid Soviet imperialism just like seeped through for, and still does, for a very long time. And I just, yeah, uh, everyone is always very surprised when they see it. I actually don't want to spend too much time on explaining again, I think, what we do and why we're here. But as you all know, we're here to feature Ukrainians and let Ukrainians talk from their perspectives and ask for the things that they need and want, and highlight stories of hope and bravery from their daily lives, of their own stories. And so I think it would be great if we can jump straight into
Yeah.
speaking with Olha, who's joining us from UA Animals today.
Yeah, absolutely. Olu, are you hearing us?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Nice to hear and nice to be with you all today.
Yes, and we're very glad to make it, finally happen, because personally, I've been following your work and the work of your initiative for many months. I mean, it's an issue that is very dear and personal to me. And today, unfortunately, I mean, everybody else, please, if you haven't seen it, you gotta Google Serhiyivka and learn about Russia's one of the recent terrorist attacks on Ukraine, on Ukrainian apartment building in Odessa region that left 19 people dead. But also, what was heartbreaking for me to see is also how many pets were also killed in that attack or left without pet parents. And this is unfortunate, of course, and very dark background for featuring your work. But I love the stories about how Ukrainians almost never abandon their pets behind and they take care of it, and how our volunteers often risk their lives to make sure that uh, animals are into safety or rescue them. But I mean, we're going to talk about this a lot because I feel like it's also integral to Ukrainian identity so much, the taking care that we do for our animals. But our golden rule every time is that we never introduce our featured Ukrainians and let them introduce themselves. So please tell everyone else who you are, where you come from, and what you do these days.
Okay, nice. Let's try. So my name is Olga Chevhaniuk, and starting from 2018, my main purpose and my main, let's say, job activity, yes, it's animal rights movement. Actually, before 2018, like right now I'm 35 already. So I was searching for like my purpose, and I knew exactly that there is something very specific what I should do in this world, but I never knew what it should be. And mostly I've tried different management positions, a little bit of business in different spheres, starting from selling clothes to I don't know, whatever, like many different organizations, for example, of exhibitions. But I always felt there should be something else, and I was keeping searching. And then after a while, I have found out about other lives, which are the most, I would say, silent, and who are not able to protect themselves. Already before that, I was in charity. I had my charity fund. It was connected with help for kids. But as I always say, that there are a lot of different topics which can hurt, but there is always one which hurts the most. And it doesn't mean it's the most important or others are not or whatever, but it means that you have the power to change something in it, and then you should go in this topic. So for me, it was about animals. And it's really curious that I have found it pretty late, I would say, because already then I was not eating meat. I was a vegetarian for like 10 years and more. I was not wearing fur, and etc., like not using cruelty cosmetic which is tested on animals. So I was personally quite deep in this topic, but I never thought about it like about activity, only for my personal use. And then in 2018, something happened in my mind, of course, connected with like big work with my values. And then I have found out about this movement, which was called UA Animals. And at that moment, they were organizing Animal Rights March. And before that, I didn't know anything about it. So I decided to go and check who is the person who's organizing it, how it looks like, what these people really want. If I do something, I need to be absolutely confident that the intentions of people are pure and they really want to do what they really doing, yes, what they pretend they want to do, and not having any other intentions. So I went and checked this like person. This is actually the founder of UA Animals. After a while, I started to volunteer. And with every week and months, I took more and more responsibilities. And then I became the co-founder, because only then we registered this organization. So mainly that's it. From that
Yeah.
time, like now I'm COO, so I'm working with all operational processes which we have for
Yeah.
now.
I mean, this is a very quintessentially Ukrainian story of people just, kind of measuring up to their values and suddenly think like, okay, these are my values, what I also can do in my life to
Mm-hmm.
advance them and defend them, and it's very badass. So thank you for sharing that. Olu, before we actually, we have tons of questions about the foundation and your work in recent months, but also, this is something we also ask our featured Ukrainians is
Mm-hmm.
about the day when the full-scale invasion started.
Mm-hmm.
And, do you remember? I mean, everybody remembers, so what a stupid way to ask it. But what was like for you that day? Can you share it with us, please?
Yeah, actually, I have found out earlier than even my parents, and I was the one who told them because I was abroad. I had vacations in Indonesia. It was on the island Bali, and I was there with my daughter, and I came for like 3 weeks or so. And I was there with my daughter, and I came for like 3 weeks or so, and I had my tickets back. So when it all started, of course, it was a shock, and I immediately called my parents. At that moment, they were sleeping, so they didn't know about anything what was happening. So I brought those news to them. Well, after that, like, still, I was not able for a while to believe that it's really happening, because I'm sure, like for everyone here, and for all like healthy people, you never expect that something like this can happen in your country, and that it's in your reality. And for a while I expected that, like, maybe it will end soon, in a month or something. Well, yeah, so it took a while to realize, but also, I would say, and I'm coming back again to my activity, yes, to animals, because we started to act in the very first day, because we realized that animals will need us more than ever right now. And talking about myself and other people who are involving in the process, this was one of the most interesting things for me during this time. I realized that by saving animals and doing all we do, yes, all, I don't know, active work in fields, all organizational processes online, we are actually not just saving animals. We are not just changing people's opinions. We are not just making them more humane. We are helping ourselves as well. And talking about myself personally, I know if I would not have this activity, yes, this let's say job, yes, this processes, I don't know how I would feel. I think I would feel horrible, because uh, when people cannot influence in any way on what is happening, like a pain. And I see that the volunteers who are coming to us, and for them, it's a bless, because they finally have an instrument to help. They finally can be the part of solution, and they finally don't just viewers. Yes, there's someone who can care about others.
Yeah.
So I believe that when all this started, the fact that I could continue to do what I did, but of course we have absolutely other processes. It actually, I don't know, saved me from all the things which I've just said.
Yeah. And you know what you said earlier as well really stuck with me, which is about sort of doing your work that is so values based and really leading by those values in whatever you do. I think that was beautiful. And I think it really summarizes so well a lot of what's been leading people in Ukraine more broadly. But I
But
think it's so important for this particular topic as well. But I also wanted to ask you as well, Olha, because you've obviously seen so many stories over the past couple of months to do with your work, to do with UA animals. So I was just wondering if you could share some stories that inspired you or some stories that you think is worth knowing for people, both about people but also about animals and how because you know for a lot of us it's so important to have those inspirational stories to keep us going, and I'm sure that you have hundreds of them. So I was just wondering if there's anything you would like to share with everyone else here.
You're absolutely right saying that I have plenty of these stories, and as all Ukrainians, it's the same about me. I have never ever been so proud about my country, about people, about what people do, what choices they make. The very first story, and I have like many like this, but this one was the first one. That's why I think it is stuck the most in my head. It was about Gostomel shelter in Kiev region. In Gostomel, it's one of the biggest shelters for cats and dogs in Ukraine, second big one. And I remember they were occupied for a while. And I remember that they didn't have the connection. And I remember how with each day, the situation was becoming worse and worse. But even hearing, seeing, and experiencing bombing besides them, people did not leave animals. And it is called responsibility, which they took once. And despite they knew they could die, and there was no way they could take all animals and leave somehow, because the territory was already occupied first, and second, there are lots of them, so it's technically not possible for that moment. And but they still stayed. And I remember so many stories like there was the part of the shelter was ruined, so they didn't have water because they didn't have electricity, and water depends on the electricity there. So they could not give food to animals because without water they could not prepare it. And day after day, week after week, they were searching for different ways and experiencing like Russians who didn't allow them to use cell phones, knowing that saying something wrong or going in a wrong place, they could be easily killed. Some animals were killed just because they are, barking or something. So, but anyway, these people were staying there and they were doing like everything what they could. And one of the hardest pictures, which is stuck in my mind, I think, for all my life, is when they didn't have water and they had to melt snow to have water. So can you imagine this feeling that you're sitting like in a safer city because just you're lucky, or just the Ukrainian army did everything to make this city safe for this moment. And you're drinking the cup of cappuccino, and glass of, fresh juice. And some, hundreds of kilometers far from you, same people who are just not that safe, not that lucky as to be safe as you, they're melting snow. And there's nothing you can do. there are people who left, who had to leave their houses, whose houses were ruined, but they didn't leave animals. There is also people, and shelters which touch me a lot. Mostly these are people, of course, but I speak about those who had to leave their houses for several times. Just some days ago, we've posted a story about the girl who lived in Crimea. And when Crimea was occupied by Russians before this invasion, she had to leave, and she took her, attention, horse with her. Horse, that's not a cat you can grab and go. So she took a horse, 3 dogs, and a cat, and she had to move to another city. And nowadays, when we have this situation right now, she has to move again, because the small city where she was situated is now occupied again. So, like, people had to be in the same situation twice.
Yeah. And didn't lose hope and care. Can you hear me? Just double checking, because I think I lost connection for a bit.
I hear you.
I also think your organization, UA Animals, is an inspiration and an inspiring story in and of itself. And UA Animals is an inspiration and an inspiring story in and of itself. And the work that you guys do is absolutely representative of those values that make us who we are as Ukrainians, and caring and hopeful. And I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more about the specific initiatives that you guys do, and essentially what is your work, and how are you supporting animals and people who are supporting animals right now?
So what we do, first, when the war started, we had 3 main directions. First one is, of course, humanitarian help. We are receiving or buying food for cats and dogs and horses, by the way, and we're sending it to those who are in need. First of all, these are regions which are occupied. It's not always possible to go and help there, but very often and mostly we find a way to send somehow food or to send funds. So the second actually thing which we do, we are fundraising, and then we are transferring these funds to those who are in need. So we receive all these requests from people who have shelters, big ones, like for hundreds of animals, and small ones as well, and all in the middle. So if, for example, this is a person who's living, I don't know, somewhere in the city or in town, village, and the person is feeding animals in the street, like 30 cats, let's say, this is also the case, we're also helping to such people. So after occupied territories, we help those which are recently deoccupied, those which are under like bombing and fighting, or are situated nearby. And of course, we help to all types of animals. It's about also wildlife. So we help to zoos. And plus, also, before war, our big focus was, of course, the changing of people opinions, making Ukrainian more humane. We had this animal rights marches, demonstrations, lots of work with influencers. UA Animals actually is a huge, I would say, media. We have really lots of readers, and it really helps us to change something from the basics, not just like buy food or do something like this, but do something which will change the situation and make the society more humane in years. And
I'm actually pinning to the broadcast the tweets from your English language account, and I'm so happy that you guys are doing now it in English as well, because over these months, and even before, this is the amount of stories that you share in Ukrainian, for example, is just huge. But each and every, I mean, literally, I've never read anything, I've never seen anything that was like meh. And they're also powerful and they're also important. So I'm super glad that you guys now do it in English, and everyone else, please pay attention and subscribe. This is a recent account, but it is already filled with something you can just scroll for hours, and it's fantastic job. Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys.
And
Yeah.
also, I just wanted to add that I think you guys are a perfect example of a grassroots Ukrainian organization. We've been talking over the past couple of months about how important it is for people from countries outside of Ukraine to donate to organizations, Ukrainian organizations that are directly helping people and animals on the ground. And we've been talking a lot about humanitarian aid for people, but I think your organization is extremely important in terms of supporting animals and people who care for animals. And so we also discussed previously that it's so important for Western audiences and everyone who wants to help to actually ask what is needed and not just provide the need that they think is needed. So I wanted to ask you, for people who are listening to us today and who will be listening to the podcast, who are outside of Ukraine but want to help, how can they be helpful to UA Animals, and what can they do to support you guys?
First of all, we have Patreon, so you're very welcome to subscribe. This is the best thing which you can do, because it's monthly, of course. But then, anyway, anytime you can unsubscribe when you think it's needed. Then we have on our pages, we have different other ways like PayPal accounts, like in euro, dollar, or whatever, to help us. So financial help is really important. Because then it will be spread for buying what is needed for shelters. Also, now we have the sterilization program, plus we have the program about reconstruction of shelters which were destroyed, and they need to be rebuilt, and of course they need to become bigger, most of them for now. So yeah, financial help for all this plus logistics will be really appreciated. Then I would say that spreading the information is really a huge help, because all that the interest in media is not that big as it was before, and less information is heard all over the world right now. So spreading the information, doing posts about your animals, tagging, sharing, it's really a huge help. Plus, we always are in search for interesting collaborations. Like recently, we had some collaborations with different stars, and it's really helpful for us also to spread the idea. So if there is anyone who can talk about your animals more widely, and you can connect us with such people, businesses probably as well, then we will also appreciate this.
That's amazing. So yeah, guys, Patreon, and follow UA Animals in English if you speak Ukrainian, and Ukrainian for more on how to help. But I'm going to pass over to Maria as well, as Maria had a question for Ola.
Yeah, thanks, Val. And thank you, Olha, so much for all the work that you do. I'm such an animal lover myself and a vegan, so I really appreciate everything that you and your team have been doing in impossible circumstances. So just a huge thank you to all of you. But I was hoping that you could tell our listeners a little bit about just how much goes into running such an extensive operation, especially during an invasion and a war, and how much help really UA Animals needs, for people to have a concrete idea of really how much support you guys are in need, and the incredible impact that the donations and the support have on your operations.
Actually, that's an open information which is possible to find as well on our page, because all of the expenses which we have daily, we daily put just on the Google sheet, which we share with people. So it's like super transparent, everything what we do. And daily, I would say that we're sending not less than 100,000 hryvnias. It's, I think, more than 3,000 of US dollars, which goes to like logistics and helping to shelters with what they need. Mostly it's food, and then it's medicine, and then it's all the rest of the projects which we have, yes, which I've already mentioned. And I would say that before, of course, it was much easier for us to fundraise this amount. Like nowadays, it's already the biggest, I would say, thing which we have to manage as like management of the organization, because before war, we didn't have separate people who were working only with fundraising. It was quite organic for us, and of course, the needs were much less. Nowadays, already, we are building the team which will be working just on this topic and just with fundraising, talking with donors, with businesses, with like separate people, making these creative projects we are in love with, and we're making them all the time, just to fundraise more. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Maria. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was also going to ask a little bit of a more different direction question, a bit more, I suppose, of a excuse me, philosophical question, and that is, I think we can say that a person's character is reflected in the way that a human treats animals. And I personally, and I know a lot of us, have seen a very stark contrast in the treatment of animals by Ukrainians and by Russians. And I remember some really graphic examples that I saw on Telegram channels. In particular, I remember Russians skinning dogs alive and eating them, and just a lot of unbelievable examples of animal cruelty. And do you think that there is a fundamental difference in the treatment of animals between Russians and Ukrainians, and what that reflects on a broader scale?
I would say yes. I would say, like, I always actually say that why Ukraine will win is just because we are different and we are who we are. And being more humane, it's the part of this. We have plenty of stories with animals like killed by Russians, and with animals saved by Russians despite their own unsafety, of course. In larger scale, it's hard to name some numbers because we don't have these numbers. We have like the numbers of separate situations, like when, for example, the whole farm with horses was burned. Yes, for example, like this. But we don't have any specific numbers, and it's really hard for me to imagine, because I believe it's just like thousands in wildlife and thousands in the streets. Maria, we always say these words of Gandhi, and no one would say better than he. It's a quote, his quote, that the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. And I'm 100% sure that it's true. And I would say maybe a very sad thing, but I believe that after the war, our society will be even more humane. It's what I experienced with my colleague, like You Animals, is working with different organizations on some topics worldwide, like the ban of fur, for example, and the ban of delphinariums. So I spoke with one colleague, who is a huge support for me, of course, nowadays, because she experienced war in her country. There was a war like for 5 years or something in her country. And what she said, that the amount of vegans grew after the war ended, and that for them, like people, they saw so much suffer and they felt so much pain that they now can, or after this, yes, they can feel more empathy for others. And that's why working with topics connected with animal rights for them is easier.
I also wanted to point everyone's attention because I feel like when we ask people to donate and we ask people to support grassroots humanitarian organizations or animals, I think it's also important to remind people how much impact these kind of donations have already made. I remember this still like fantastic story about Mykolaiv Zoo, which is the largest Ukrainian zoo in southern Ukraine. And of course, since the first days of invasion, it got terribly hit by non-constant bombing. But I always remember how literally tens of thousands of people from all around the world just replied to the call to go and buy online tickets for that zoo, and the same happened to Kiev Zoo as well. And it helped those zoos. I just feel like people, you should know that you have power, actual power, and even if you buy like a couple of tickets or you donate, I don't know, 20 euros together, it actually matters on the ground. Am I right, Olga?
Yes,
this is actual power.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We would not be able to do anything without people who are donating. And before first months, I think, when we were counting the result of the day, first we were counting, how much money was spent, like on that. But after this, we realized that it's not the goal, to spend money. The goal is to save lives. And instead of counting how much money we spent, we started to count how many animals we saved, meaning how many animals we had a chance to evacuate to pay for logistics, how many animals we sterilized, how many animals we fed. Yeah, because for example, if we sending, I don't know, 10,000 hryvnias, to one shelter, we know that around 100 of animals have food for 1 month. So it's really easy right now for us to count how many animals we save. And that's what you can see every day in our reports, because every day your animals is doing a report on the page, saying what was done in one day. So it's super transparent and super quickly we give all the information back. So every day or every dollar you donate, you can see what was your part in this whole process.
Yeah, and since we with Maxim and Maria usually mostly have people from outside Ukraine, I just wanted to say that I know some people sometimes wonder about, donations going to Ukrainian organizations and where they end up and what is done with them. But I think Olha just really summarized to you the transparency of Ukrainian civil society organizations, the sort of direct work that they're doing on the ground every single day, and that and just basically clearly for the past 48 minutes show to us why it's so important to continue donating to people who are helping Ukrainians and Ukrainian animals and everyone else every single day. So I think just wanted to remind everyone and just say that don't be scared to donate to Ukrainian organizations. Actually, I encourage you to specifically donate to Ukrainian organizations such as UA Animals, because they're doing amazing work. So, Olha, to wrap up, we ask usually our favorite question, and I think there's a few things that you said throughout today that really stuck with me, but around the humanity, right? The way that the way that we've really seen that come out through people and the way that they've been treating animals and staying behind and taking care of them, melting ice to have water and all of these amazing stories. And I just wanted to ask you, for you personally, as a person who's been volunteering for such a long time, before the war, now in the war, what does it mean for you in terms of your values and just in general? What does it mean for you to be Ukrainian?
To be Ukrainian, I don't know. For me, I would say, I can't say briefly, so it will be a short story.
Please.
Yeah, in my life, it happened this way because of my personal life. My first husband I had, he had this idea of living somewhere abroad. I have no idea like how it happened in his head, and my life was happening, in such a way that every time I was able to move anywhere else in the world and to live like anywhere in the world, like to just I don't know, anywhere in any country I would want to, but I never realized why I should, and what will be better there for me, why I should be there. And for a while, like the longest time I think I lived abroad was around 9 months. It was COVID time, but I was trying to do something on the territory where I was, and it is absolutely possible. Like you can save animals anywhere you are, you can do something there. But for me, I always felt that it's just the right place for me. Like Ukraine is the right place. My team is here. Laws which I absolutely understand are here. I have everything what I need to develop myself, to develop my personality here. It's just happening somehow in this world that you're born somewhere where you can be useful. And I believe it's not for everyone, and sometimes it's reasonably to relocate somewhere and live in a different place. But when I've made this choice to come from abroad to Ukraine, even with my daughter, it felt absolutely right for me because I wanted to be the part of everything what is happening here. Right now, for me, being in Ukraine and being Ukrainian means to be in my place, do what I have to do. And I know that Ukraine is changing absolutely its history right now. Before, when I was traveling and people asked me like, where are you from? Ukraine? Where is Ukraine? Is it near Russia? That was always the case, which I've heard. I know that I will never ever hear this again abroad. Like everyone will know now where is Ukraine, how rich is this country with people, yes, with our actions, about our values, bravery, and the rest. So all I want to do now is to support it as much as I can on my front, because like we say that we have this animal protection front. Yes, it's our part of bringing Ukraine to the victory is helping animals to survive and helping people who help animals and who keep these animals to survive. And of course, after this all will end, I hope we will do all what we can to change the fundamentals of how people behave with animals.
Yeah. And
this is very
also,
powerful. Thank you so much for sharing this. And also the work that you do and your organization does, I think it's a very good testament to one trait of Ukrainians I really love, is this a bit of extra empathy that Ukrainians have, that not only they extend to each other in times of genocide, but they also extend to animals as well, with the same kind of love and empathy that they take care of their loved ones in the family. So this is very powerful and beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing these stories today with us.
Thank you, guys. I was glad to, and thank you for bringing me here and talking about Ukraine.
Always welcome. And just a quick reminder to everyone, I know we've said it a lot, but I think one responsibility that Maxim and I have is to show people outside of Ukraine all the amazing initiatives that they can support. We've brought in people from Women's March, from Kiev Pride, from now UA Animals. There's so many causes. There's so many amazing people doing a lot of great work. So we just ask you to support Ukrainian voices, support Ukrainian initiatives, and follow and amplify the work that these organizations and initiatives do. So just really, really grateful to Olha for coming and joining us. And I really encourage everyone to follow UA Animals as well in English or in Ukrainian, and follow their work and support them.
Yep. And last but not least, guys, our sponsors, thank you so much. This broadcast is only happening thanks to your growing support for Ukrainian Spaces on Patreon. And we would love to get more works done, and that's why we need more support. So please tell about us to your friends and spread the word online. We're always happy. But most importantly, even if you're not a sponsor but you love our show, please use and claim the hashtag Ukrainian Spaces to share your stories. We always love to quote them and feature them, because this is literally our job, to amplify more Ukrainian voices and decolonize more Ukrainian stories online. I think that's it for today. Thank you, Olo. Thank you, Valeria and Maria. Was a really special one. One thing is left is Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Героям слава. Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
guys.